want to say to the Korean American community and to Case, thank you very much for your wonderful support, your wonderful organization, your commitment to my campaign. And I have to tell you that without the Korean American community, not only in this country, but other parts of the globe have been very, very helpful in our campaign. We were able to win the primary with 20%, and then in the general election, we won by 4%, which is about 7,000 votes. It was closer than I'd like it, but we experienced the victory where many people in our Democratic Party had lost their race, but we had won our race, and so the good part of it was because of your wonderful support, your activity, and your organization, and we have to do that again. The Korean American community this past 2 years has stepped up as a political force. And I think that stepping up as a political force and other people understanding that the Korean American community can get together to help politicians, whether they're Asians or not, if they represent the needs and the concerns and the issues of Korean American communities here in this country, then the Korean American community can also say, we will support you. And we saw that with Congressman Bill Pascrell, who has a picture and dedicated the Weeambu statue in the city of Palisades Park, right? And this has happened across the country, in California, in Chicago, in LA, in Sonoma County, all through this country. And I think what needs to be done in order for the political leverage and the political impact that Korean Americans have in this country is to participate in local government and in governmental affairs. We know that there's a lot of resistance now being put forward very, very consciously by the Japanese government, and they are sending people out to different communities to discourage local government from allowing them to put up memorials and saying that these things never happened. Well, we know that it did happen. We know that the issue of the sexual slavery by the Japanese military in the 30s and 40s up to the end of World War II occurred. And that's the reason why we're here today. And that's one of the reasons why I've been so active and adamant about seeing that the Japanese government accept full responsibility and apologize unambiguously. And that's why we had passed Resolution 121 in 2007. And then a year and a half ago, we passed the resolution into the appropriation bill where it became law. And we know that the direction to the State Department, to Secretary of State Kerry, and to the White House, that they need to move forward on this issue. And I think when President Obama last year, had gone to Korea and had said when he visited South Korea, made a public statement and said that what the Japanese military had done during World War II was atrocious and that it needs to be dealt with. And so I think our next step, and I just got back from Korea from December 16th, was there for 5 days. I met with the foreign minister, met with the Korean Institute of Trade, the Korean KITA, the Trade Association. I met with the Chamber of Commerce. I met with the military also, the General Scaparati, who was involved with the entire security of the Korean Peninsula and Asia. Met with, visited the Korean War Memorial, and met with also a large church called Yoido Church, and to ask them to participate in this effort to talk to the churches in Japan, church to church, Christian to Christian, to move this issue to the grassroots so that they can educate the other Christians in Japan so that these people can encourage the politicians to do the right thing. And also met with President Park. We had a good discussion. We talked about reunification. We talked about trade. We talked about also the issue of the sexual slavery, and but I was particularly interested in how she looked at the issue of unification and also the issue of the Wiambu. And her special assistant was the past Congresswoman Cho. She is a special assistant to the president, and we had a long discussion on the sexual slavery issue. I think that our next step is to make sure that the churches talk to churches in Japan. The media here talk to the media in Japan, because the media has to educate the population in Japan. Most of them don't know that this happened because the Japanese government does not allow instruction of what happened during World War II in Asia to the young people. So those folks are growing up ignorant. They don't know the facts. I thought the 5-day trip was important because two things I wanted to do was generate interest in and understand better the issue of reunification, and also pay attention to the plight and the need for an apology by the Japanese government to the Wiambu. And I think that young people need to understand why that issue is important. And that the importance of the issue of sexual slavery is that although it happened in the past, the victims need the apology for the return of their dignity. The people who had already died and passed away, their spirit needs that apology. And for today, we see and we hear incidents of sexual slavery and girls being captured in Africa, in Darfur, in Bosnia, where girls are being captured and being sold as sexual slaves or girls to be used as wives, and that's unacceptable. So the issue of what happened in Asia during World War II is still necessary to address today because it's a problem today in areas of conflict, and we have to stop this kind of nonsense of the violence against women. And in this country, we have people who are engaged in domestic violence and violence against women. This has to stop. And I think that the Korean American community can be the clarion, can be the bell ringer, can be the leader in a global effort to end violence against women by using our history, our knowledge, and our sentiment to make sure that this becomes an issue that we solve in our generation. And so, we have to continue this. And the questions usually asked, so what do we do now? And I think that this community case, members of the Korean American community can teach other people, get other civil rights groups to join, and to turn this into a wildfire. Let other people catch on fire with the fire that you have. And I think that if you have 500,000 Koreans in the tri-state area, what would it look like if 500,000 Korean Americans wrote emails to the White House That's a lot of emails to receive in one day. And for the State Department to receive an email from 500,000 Korean Americans from Tri State. And you really don't have to be a citizen of this country, you just have to be a human being who understand what the issue is and to put forward the challenge of our government working with Japan to acknowledge their responsibility. This is not against the Japanese people, it is for the Japanese government who was responsible for that kind of act back in the 30s and 40s. Because government is still an organic being that is responsible for the past, present, and future. So we have to keep the Japanese government on that. And so I'm suggesting that our churches and our communities start to email the White House and State Department. If you believe that this is something that needs to be done, you can just invoke HR 121 as a resolution and as a mandate by law to have our government be more conscientious in bringing it up, or at least telling us what they're doing, okay? And this is what participatory government is all about. And I think that it would be the next step that we need to move forward on. It's a presidential election year. The next 2 years will be presidential election. We know that there's a possibility that Hillary Clinton may run for president. When she was Secretary of State, she said very clearly, comfort woman is a euphemism. It is really sexual slavery. And when she made that comment as Secretary of State and as a woman and as a potential candidate for presidency, just think how powerful that could be for the community. Just think. And then if she is president and she's sitting down with President Park, they could talk about Prime Minister Abe, two women talking about a guy, you know. What would that look like? At a governmental leadership level, powerful, visionary, possible. So we have to start building the fire now again. You know, building that fire and heating up the issue so that it starts to simmer and start to brew, and hopefully that it has some benefit and outcomes before the remaining 50 grandmothers, before the 50 Wirambu, the Harmony, before they pass away. This is the urgency. This is the urgency, the short time that they have left on this earth to give them the satisfaction, the dignity of an apology. So thank you very much.